I was here last night till midnight, stroking this radiator with my little 3 for $1 wire brush. This thing was clogged with tissues and paper towels and fluid film grease and just crud. Speaking of crud, Stanley Crudd, Stanley C. Crudd. How do you spell it?
C-R-U-D-D.
Because everybody loves double D's. That was a rehearsed line. Okay. This radiator is nice and clean and shiny and ready to go back in the TurboWeasel. And oh, where's my lamp? Here's my lamp. What are we doing here? Lie down on the floor. Lie down. Lie down. I'll see if I can get those starter bolts off. What do we got here? We had a brake line that was so rusty, it was unbelievable. I think what happened is the fluid film got boiled off by the proximity to the radiator hose. And once the fluid film is boiled off, that line was crispy, crunchy. So to get to it, you've got to take out the radiator. To get the radiator out, you've got to take off the bolt right there, which is blocked by the steering box. There's one bolt right there in the pinch nut, stamped steel pal nut. And one right there, blocked by the radiator hose, blocked by the intercooler, blocked by the idler arm. Look at the rust on that hose clamp. You can be sure I fluid filmed this to death. What else did I notice was rusty? This hose clamp, when I put that on, I put on anti-seize, copper anti-seize. You can see it. That's not rust, that's copper anti-seize because it's metallic. Oh, we got problems. We got problems in River City. Look at the fitting. This thing was fluid filmed everywhere. I did it 3-4 times. Once when I first bought it in 2010, and I did it 2 years ago. I did it again last year. She took it to some local specialist. She put fluid film on. She watched them. All right. Okay. He also sent her out the door with loose upper control arm bolts, 2 worn lower ball joints. She's been going to various shops. Someone said, well, she's going to the wrong shop. She's been to several. One guy said it needed, how am I going to get in there? Look at all the antifreeze on the ground. One guy said it needed, a front crankshaft seal because it's pouring on oil. So I said, okay, let's go look. Let's go look at the front crankshaft seal. Oh, man. Look at all the debris I took out from between the condenser and the radiator. One guy says it needs a turbo. We already determined it does not need a turbo because it's got blow-by, and the blow-by is filling up the front of the turbo. So one guy said it needed a crankshaft seal. Nothing. No oil coming out of there. The oil is coming out of the oil cooler line, which when I bought it had 2 hose clamps on it. And can you see them? So I think it's time for some Leroy diesel service. Oil cooler lines and the adapter O-rings. Look at that rust on the crossover. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do. I think the rear main may be leaking because that thing is wiped clean. I think the rear main may be leaking. That is a big job. Rust. So I don't care what people say. Oh, I put crown on. I put rust check. I did this. I did that. You can put anything on. If you don't pay close attention to it, it's gonna rust. Look at the backing plate. Where is it? Right there. They're galvanized. I sprayed so much fluid film on, it's still rusty. That ball joint's junk. This knuckle's probably coming off. This lower control arm is coming off to change the ball joint. Those rivets are hard to get to. These bushings are bad. This one's junk. That bushing is finished. Finito! Now something else that's not working on this truck of vital importance. 4-wheel drive. She said she got stuck on a steep hill. The truck wouldn't move. I said, well, did you put it in 4-wheel drive? She says, well, duh. Put it in low lock. I said, only in extreme conditions. She says, it was stuck. So what this truck had was the thermal four-wheel drive actuator, and I upgraded to the electric motor one. There's a little steel plug that goes on the end of that, a spacer. Looks like 5 washers stacked together, but it's solid. So I put it on, and the only upgrade you have to make when you put that on is to run a power wire to the fuse block. So I did it. I even labeled it right here. With a sharp Sharpie. Brown wire 4x actuator. And I put it on the AC, what does that say? I don't have my glasses on. Fuel solenoid? Yep. So this wire was disconnected. And there's no way that wire came disconnected by itself. No way. Someone unplugged it, maybe when she had this another bozo place. Tell her she needed an injection pump 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't the injection pump. After he removed the solenoid, the plunger, and dropped the spring into the intake, it needed a PMD, remote PMD. The original PMD was still in place, or an original one, or an old one, so I put in an extension harness and clamped that thing on, and we're good to go. So maybe they unplugged this fuse and tossed that brown wire, and that brown wire is an extra wire you need to run that four-wheel drive actuator. But what's happening is, even though I powered that up and I checked for power at the bottom, she's not getting four-wheel drive. So, gotta grab this piece of cardboard again. The question is, before I Google it, because Google knows everything, including how many D's are in Crudd. How many D's are in Crudd?
Double D's.
Double D's. Having a good time under there? I'm going to look at that starter for you before you bust things. Don't bust that solenoid. You got to wait for me. Get comfortable, but don't touch anything. I know. The four-wheel drive isn't working. That actuator's not going bzzz, bzzz. And I checked all the wires. Everything seems kosher. I think what the problem is, and I haven't Googled it yet, but I do have some common sense. Not a lot, but some. I think what the problem is, if I could get my head in there, I think there is an actuator on top. Yep, there it is, just above the rod. That switch may not be switching and sending a signal when you pull the lever into 4 high or 4 low. I think, because I tried it. Nothing. Look how nice that frame is after 7 or 8 winters. But, see? And I put lots of fluid film on this. Lots and lots and lots, so. No matter what you put on it, Vaseline, chain oil, this oil, that oil, KY jelly, whatever you put on, you got to come back and look at things, because you'll always get a bit of corrosion. Look at that plate where the four-wheel drive lever goes through the floor. I can get the camera up in there. Rust. And I put so much fluid film on this. Look at the drive shaft. Too bad it wasn't leaking from the rear seal of the transfer case. That's rust. Look, it's rusted. So I'm going to have to do some touching up here. And come springtime, we're going to take up the sandblaster and touch things up. In the meantime, I've got to put the radiator back. I've got to put some white grease on that brake line because of the proximity to the radiator hose. It must get warm. It boils off the fluid film, and that thing was nasty, rusty. But I sanded it down. Da 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 da. I'll clean these babies up. What else am I going to do? Clean up this transmission line, which I've already done once before. Needs an air conditioning compressor. That's spinning way too easy. I've already sprayed tons of white grease on this. It's still corroding. I'm going to get a new belt, new ball joints, new bushings. I've already cleaned my air cleaner 3 times with K&N air filter cleaner. And luckily this didn't get tossed by someone that didn't know. It doesn't have a sticker, but that's nice and clean now. It'll get oiled. Yep, nice and clean now. Didn't get tossed, luckily. And what else does this thing need? Needs a new front bumper. Got whacked years ago. It's got a billet grill. We got a billet grill coming. And needs a little bit of paint work. It's taking a beating, the old truck. I had the dash apart. It's easy to get to. I put in all new dash lights, but I used the bright ones. I think I used the 168s. They're brighter than the 194s. They're too bright. They're going to melt the socket, so I'll have to get some 168s. Got all those working. Got the little ones working here. All 4 of them were burned out. All done. The dash is junk. Anybody got a dash with no cracks in it? This one is garbage. That's the way it was.
You got a bad brake line coming to this flex line here.
What's that name again, sir? Stanley C. Crudd. We got this running. We got oil in it this time. We're putting all new brakes on. And I'm going to paint all my tools with fluorescent yellow paint because I don't want anybody taking my tools. What do we got here? This truck had heavy-duty suspension. It's a half-ton with lots of leaves, probably half broken, if not all of them. And we got a bit of rust here. The bed's coming off. And we'll put in a nice piece of channel in there and bolt it to the bed. We'll fix this baby up. It's a shame, only got 100,000 miles. Just a tin worm. It's all on the ground. It'll weigh less once it gets out of here. You can tell it's a low mileage truck because that's not too worn. Sometimes with 200,000 that'll wear right through. We'll fix her up. All new parts. New. That's the report of the day. Next thing we're going to be doing is plowing snow. Yep. All right, Mr. Double D. Stanley Double D Crudd. Get to work.